Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Busy Bride podcast. Today is a solo wedding tip episode where I, a wedding photographer, bring you, a couple planning your wedding, a tip to consider when you are in the throes of planning. And today we are talking about outdoor weddings. There are a lot of factors to consider with outdoor weddings. They are gorgeous, they are popular for a reason, but there are definitely more things to consider and plan for when you are getting married outside. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Busy Bride podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella Marie, and I created this podcast to help you research vendors and learn valuable advice as you plan the most special and true to you wedding day of your dreams. Let's get started. Okay, outdoor weddings are gorgeous. I love a good outdoor wedding. When I get married one day, I want to have an outdoor wedding. I just think they're amazing. Big sunshine person. But there are so many factors to consider because we cannot control the weather as much as we would hope we can. And the forecast is honestly not super reliable, especially when you're checking it like 2 weeks out from the wedding day. So it's just good to plan for all different scenarios with your outdoor wedding. And if you're getting married at a venue that also offers an indoor wedding, it's a good idea to make sure that you love the indoor wedding space just in case you need to pivot there on your wedding day and you can't get married outside as planned. I know it's not ideal, but just in case it happens, you want to make sure that you are still super happy with all the pictures and super excited to get married inside that venue. So, I'm going to go through a couple specific tips to think about when planning your outdoor wedding. And the first one is your shoes. A lot of brides are wearing white shoes or like a light blue shoe or a really fancy shoe that can easily show dirt and mud. And if you're getting married outside, if it has rained at all in the past couple days, it might be muddy, there might be some dirt there. Even the dust from like gravel can get onto your shoes. So you just need to be aware that your shoes can get dirty during your ceremony, which is no big deal. However, if you're planning on wearing those shoes for the rest of the day, then those shoes are going to have some mud and dirt and possibly dust on them. So here's a fix for that. Either bring a separate pair of shoes for your reception, which is really fun. A lot of people will do like sneakers or just a more comfortable pair of shoes to dance in, or bring something that can clean your shoes off for the reception. So make sure your shoe is a material that can be cleaned off quite easily. You could bring like wet wipes or something to just wipe those shoes off, but that's something to think about so that you don't have dirty wedding shoes the whole rest of the wedding day, because the ceremony is the beginning really of the day. Now let's talk about the elements. Not rain, not snow, but wind. I know that you have probably thought about rain, and if snow is possible, you've thought about that too. But it is very easy to overlook wind, but it is the most common element that happens at an outdoor wedding. Even in the summer when there's a gentle breeze, that's still wind. And in the spring, it's a lot of wind coming. I don't know what it is about the spring. I'm not a what is it, meteorologist. I don't know why the spring is windy, but I just remember in high school running track meets in the spring. There would be some really gusty winds on track meets, and like you would turn one corner of the track and just be hit in the face with a giant blast of wind. Anyway, wind is it's an important factor to think about. So there are a couple reasons why wind matters. The first one is with your hair. So if your hair is down for your wedding, the wind can possibly mess up the hairstyle that you paid a professional to create for you, and that's a bummer. So make sure you consider that when choosing your hairstyle for the day. And if you have strands hanging down on the side of your face, which is super duper common for any sort of hairstyle on wedding days, they can be blown around in the wind. They can be like either blowing straight back, which would probably be the most ideal. They could be blowing into your face. They could just be doing little circles around your head. So beware of that when you have strands down the side of your face for an outdoor wedding. The fix for this, I would consider doing an updo, even a partial updo, but something that kind of secures your hair in place so it's not all down and has the possibility to be flying all over the place. And if you want strands on the side, I would make them long enough to tuck behind your ear if the wind gets out of hand. That way, you can still have those strands in case there's no real wind interference and everything goes as planned. But if it's a little windier than you thought, you can just tuck them behind your ear and they're not going to be bothering you during the ceremony, and you can just focus on marrying the love of your life. And while we're on the topic of your hair, let's talk about the giant accessory pinned to your scalp, the veil. If it's windy, you don't want this thing blown away. So make sure it is locked into your hair. That is the fix. Just overload the bobby pins. Truly just make sure it's locked in there, just so we don't have a runaway veil during the ceremony. And if it happens, it's a funny memory. It'll be great. You still get married, and that's fine. But I just want to give this little tip to you ahead of time in case you haven't thought about it. And also with the veil, the direction the wind is blowing makes a pretty big difference if you're wearing like a long cathedral veil. Even a gentle breeze blowing the wrong way can like pin the veil to your body instead of having the veil flow out very elegantly behind you. And that's, when you picture wearing a long veil, you picture it gracefully dragging behind you and kind of adding volume to the whole look. But if the wind is blowing the veil into you, it can just not be the look that you're going for. So that is something to consider. If you don't have like specific sides that you want your family to sit on at the ceremony, consider like testing the wind before the ceremony and standing on the side where the wind is going to blow your veil back to get the look that you are going for with the veil. As long as you get married, you get married. So I don't really think it matters which side you stand on. So as long as you don't care about which side you stand on, you don't have specific sides or family to sit on it in advance. Just talk to your photographer, talk to your officiant, talk to your wedding party, make sure everybody's in the same page with that, and stand on the side where the wind is in your favor. Okay, quick episode here. We have one more thing. The last thing to consider, but definitely not the least thing to consider, is your decorations. If you have decor for your arbor that is not super duper secured, the wind can knock it out of place. So, story time. I photographed a gorgeous outdoor wedding this fall, and the bride, instead of having like an arbor, had two like white column pillars about like waist high on the sides of where she and her husband were standing. And then they had these really pretty floral arrangements sitting on top of them. And the florist did a great job. The arrangements were very securely pinned in place. Those flowers were not moving. However, the pillars, the white little pillars they were standing on, were hollow. So, as we were preparing for the ceremony, every time there was a wind gust in the wrong direction, the pillar would fall over and the flower arrangement would just like smash onto the ground. And it was fine. The flowers didn't get messed up, but you didn't want that happening during the ceremony. So me and the bridal attendant and the father of the bride were all kind of talking about what to do, how to make sure those don't fall down during the ceremony, how to fix it. And there ended up being like little openings in these pillars where the bridal attendant was like, well, if you pour water in, then it gives them some more weight and they hopefully wouldn't be blowing over so easily in the wind. So that's what we did. And then we just crossed our fingers real hard that the wind didn't have an insanely huge gust and knock the pillar over and spill water everywhere. But the water really did add some really good weight to those pillars. So that did not happen. It ended up being a beautiful ceremony. Minor wind, super, super minor wind. And everything was great. So that was the fix for that. So that's something to consider if you have any standalone arbors or decorations or anything like that. The wind can affect those as well. So a couple things to think about with outdoor ceremonies. I think wind was like the biggest heavy hitter there just because it can affect so many small aspects of your wedding. And I want to have a little disclaimer here. I know I said it earlier, but literally the only thing that matters on your wedding day is that you get married to the love of your life. Everything else comes second. Everything else is icing on the cake. But I know you spent a lot of time and money planning this day already, and you will continue to do so. And there's so much thought and effort poured into the day. So I want you to hear all these tips so that you are prepared. And if you haven't considered these, then it should be like, oh my gosh, never thought of that. Now I can plan and prepare for that possibly happening. Again, outdoor weddings, gorgeous. They just require a lot of extra planning and preparation for the just in case situations. And if anything happens to you and your wedding that wasn't planned, count it as a unique memory that you will forever have during one of the best days of your life. So, if you love this episode, if you found anything helpful, anything that you didn't before consider, yay. I would love if you could share this episode to your story or send it to your friend who's planning a wedding. Anybody you know planning a wedding, so that we can spread the goodness and get this into the ears of brides who could use the advice. Now, go hug your person, and I will see you next Wednesday.